You are wrong.
I am never wrong.
You are absolutely, completely, 100% wrong. There is no doubt in my mind.
An interesting opinion. I will wait patiently for you to realize your mistake.
See, that right there. That little verbal sparring match we just had. Did it feel rude to you? Did you think for a second we were actually about to start a fight?
Honestly, it felt like a perfectly normal Tuesday morning in our kitchen. Just a bit of playful back and forth.
But here is the thing. If you are a learner of English and you heard that exchange, your internal alarm bells might be ringing. You might think, oh, they are being aggressive. They are arguing. Someone is going to be upset. Maybe even a little offended.
And yet, here we are, both perfectly fine. Laughing even. Because we know something that often takes a long time to truly grasp in a second language. There is a massive, cavernous difference between simply disagreeing and actually being rude. It is a distinction that can feel almost invisible at first.
And that precise gap, that subtle, often misunderstood space between expressing a different view and causing offense, is exactly where today's episode lives. A warm welcome to Mr. and Mrs. Oxford. I'm JD.
And I'm Hazel. And if you listened last week, we promised you this one. We said this episode might feel a little emotionally uncomfortable, not because the grammar is hard or the vocabulary is complex, but because disagreeing politely in English is a deep social skill that almost no language course ever truly teaches you. It is a feeling.
Most courses, bless their hearts, teach you very formal phrases like, I'm afraid I have to disagree. Which is grammatically perfect, yes, but it sounds so stiff, so formal, like you are about to file a legal complaint or write a formal letter to your landlord.
And then you step into a real conversation with a native speaker, and your friend looks you in the eye and says, I think pineapple absolutely belongs on pizza. And suddenly, you have no idea how to respond without either completely abandoning your own convictions or starting a full-blown argument right there at the dinner table.
Which, let us be very clear, is a genuinely divisive topic. We are not going to settle the pineapple on pizza debate today. That is a battle for another time.
We are not. What we are going to do instead is give you a practical toolkit, a collection of real phrases that native speakers actually use, strategies that keep a conversation warm, friendly, and open, even when you fundamentally disagree with the person across from you.
And we are going to do it the way we always do. Through real-world examples, a few shared mistakes, and probably, just probably, a small, good-natured argument between the two of us.
Probably.
Let us start with what I think is the single biggest, most common mistake learners make when they try to express disagreement in English.
Oh, do tell. My ears are perked.
The word but.
Ooh, you are going straight for the jugular with that one. That is a good point.
So learners, quite understandably, learn that but is the word for contrast. And it is, grammatically, absolutely correct. I like it, but I disagree. That is perfectly fine English from a sentence structure point of view.
But, and here is the problem, the very heart of the issue. The moment you utter that little word, but, you effectively cancel, erase, and completely invalidate everything that came before it. The human brain hears but, and it simply forgets the nice, polite, or acknowledging thing you said first. It is gone, vanished.
Exactly. So if I were to say to you, that was a really interesting idea, a genuinely thoughtful suggestion, but I think you are completely wrong about the details. What is the only part that truly registers in your mind? What sticks?
I only heard, you are completely wrong. The interesting idea part, the thoughtful suggestion part, it dissolved like smoke. It disappeared into the ether.
It vanished into thin air. And this is not just a quirk of the English language. This is deep-seated human psychology. Researchers even have a name for it. They call it the but eraser. Whatever comes after but is what truly sticks. what takes root in the listener's memory.
So, if but is the enemy of polite disagreement, what do native speakers use instead? A lot of the time, surprisingly, it is the humble word and.
And is pure magic. Think about the difference. That is a really interesting idea, and I wonder if we are perhaps thinking about it from slightly different angles. Same underlying disagreement, completely different emotional feeling for both people in the conversation. It feels like an invitation.
Or and, paired with that wonderfully subtle little word, though. I can absolutely see your point there, and I do think there might be something else going on here, though.
That tiny though at the very end. It is doing an enormous amount of work, pulling a lot of weight in that sentence, is it not?
It really is. Though at the end of a sentence softens the entire statement. It makes it sound less like a definitive judgment and more like a gentle reflection. It is not really my style, though. I am not sure that is quite right for me, though. It sounds thoughtful, like you are still pondering, rather than just being blunt or dismissive.
Okay. So, first technique for today. Make a conscious effort to swap but for and. Try it this week. Every single time you feel the urge to say but in a disagreement, just pause. Take a breath. See if and works instead. You might be genuinely surprised by the shift in the conversation's energy.
Now, let us talk about cushioning, because this is something British speakers, in particular, do almost automatically, so fluidly, that it can feel very strange, almost unnecessarily indirect, if you are not accustomed to it.
Cushioning is exactly what it sounds like. You essentially wrap the disagreement in something soft, something gentle, to protect both people involved in the conversation. It is like putting bubble wrap around a fragile item.
So, a bare, uncushioned disagreement sounds like, I do not think that is right. It is direct. It is factual. It can also feel quite confrontational.
A cushioned disagreement, on the other hand, sounds like, I might be missing something crucial here, and I do not think that is quite right for this specific situation.
Now, let us be honest. I might be missing something here is not always, or even often, literally true. JD usually knows exactly what he thinks and rarely misses anything.
It is almost never literally true. You are absolutely right. But it is profoundly socially true. It signals to the other person, I am not attacking you. I am not questioning your intelligence. I am thinking alongside you. I am being collaborative in my doubt.
Other common cushions you will hear all the time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I may be slightly off base here, but this might just be me, but
This might just be me. That one is truly lovely, is it not? It takes full ownership of the disagreement. It says very clearly, this is my personal perspective, my individual take, not some universal, undeniable fact that you are simply failing to grasp. It immediately deflates any potential tension.
and that, in essence, is the deeper principle, the underlying philosophy. When you disagree in English, especially in British English, you are usually presenting your view as one possible interpretation, one perspective among many, not as the obvious, unassailable truth that the other person is somehow too foolish or stubborn to see.
Which, if you come from a cultural background where directness, logical debate, and asserting your position are highly valued, can feel incredibly strange. It can feel like you are being weak, like you are not defending your position with sufficient force or conviction.
But you absolutely are defending it. You are just doing it in a way that keeps the door wide open. You are saying, in effect, I disagree with you, and I still genuinely want to keep talking to you. I value our connection more than being right.
That is, in fact, the entire goal of polite disagreement. Not to win the argument, but to keep the conversation alive, to maintain the relationship, and to allow for further understanding.
Exactly. Right. Now, let us look at a few specific phrases, real ones, the kind you will actually hear flowing naturally in everyday British conversation. We are going to go through them, and I want JD to react to each one as if I am saying them to him for the very first time. This is a little exercise for you, the listener, as well. Notice how each one feels to you, what kind of door it opens or closes.
Okay, hit me with your best shot. Go.
I see where you are coming from, and I am not sure I agree entirely.
That one feels profoundly respectful. It truly feels like you genuinely made an effort to understand my perspective first, to step into my shoes for a moment. That "I see where you are coming from" part is absolutely crucial. It is not just an empty formula. It communicates that you have actively considered, absorbed, and processed my view before offering your own.
Precisely. Now, how about this one? That is a fair point. I still think.
Oh, that one is powerful. That is a fair point is incredibly generous. It is not, "You are right." No, it is, "I acknowledge you said something reasonable, something valid." And then that "I still think" holds your ground with such quiet strength. You have not moved an inch from your position, but you have done so gracefully.
I still think is, in my opinion, one of the most useful and versatile phrases in the entire English disagreement toolkit. It says, unequivocally, "I heard you. I considered everything you said." My view, however, has not changed.
Compare that to just repeating yourself, perhaps more loudly, which is what often happens in unproductive arguments.
Which, by the way, never ever works.
Never works. Okay, what is next?
I am not entirely convinced, I must say.
Now that one is really interesting. Not entirely convinced is so much softer, so much more inviting than a blunt, "I disagree." It sounds like you might be persuadable, like the conversation is still open for more information. Which, critically, keeps the exchange flowing, keeps the doors of communication open.
And that little, at the start is doing so much work there. It is a thinking sound. It signals, I am actively processing what you said. I am weighing it. I am considering it, not just instantly dismissing it.
These small, almost unconscious sounds. Huh. Right. They are not mere filler words. They are vital, social signals. They silently communicate. I am still here with you. I am engaged. I am listening.
One more for you. Do you know, I think I see it slightly differently, actually.
Oh, I adore that one. The "do you know" at the very start is so quintessentially British, is it not? It is like a softer, warmer version of "you know what." And slightly differently. It is not, "You are wrong and I am right, end of story." It is, "We are simply standing in different places, looking at the same thing, and both views are perfectly valid from where we stand."
It is an invitation to compare perspectives, not a verdict.
Right. Let us do something practical now. We are going to walk through two distinct versions of the exact same conversation. Hazel, you are going to tell me your opinion on something. First, I will respond badly, the way many learners, unfortunately, default to, even with the best intentions. Then, I will respond well, employing some of the techniques we just discussed. Listeners, see if you can hear and feel the monumental difference between the two.
Okay, here's my opinion. I think working from home is universally better than going into a traditional office every day. You get so much more done, and you have a dramatically better work-life balance.
Bad version? No. I absolutely do not agree with that. Studies consistently show that office workers are more productive. Working from home has many, many problems and distractions.
That felt like a massive brick wall suddenly slamming down between us. It was so abrupt. It felt like you were just waiting for me to finish so you could pounce.
No cushion, no acknowledgement of your perspective, just immediate, unyielding contradiction. It shuts everything down, does it not? Now, good version. Hazel, tell me your opinion again.
Okay, I still think working from home is universally better than going into an office.
Right. Let me try to respond well this time.
That is an interesting perspective, and I wonder if it might just depend on the individual person, though. I personally find I really need the clear separation between home and work. I might be in the minority on that, I suppose.
Completely, utterly different. You still disagreed with me. You did not suddenly agree with my premise. But I still feel heard. I feel acknowledged. And crucially, I want to keep talking to you about it. I want to explore that difference.
I wonder if it depends on is a truly fantastic phrase, by the way. It does not say you are wrong. It says, perhaps the picture is more nuanced, more complicated, not a simple black and white.
And I might be in the minority on that. It is slightly self-deprecating, is it not? It injects a touch of humility, making the disagreement feel lighter, less like a confrontation.
Let us talk for a moment about tone, because you can have all the right phrases, perfectly structured, and still sound completely wrong if the way you are speaking, the quality of your voice, is doing something entirely different.
This is something language learners almost never get taught, yet it is so vital. Your tone of voice carries more emotional information than the actual words you are speaking.
If I say, that is a fair point, but in a flat, clipped, almost monotone voice, it immediately sounds sarcastic, does it not? It sounds like I think it is absolutely not a fair point at all. Quite the opposite.
But that is a fair point. With a slight, gentle rise at the end, a warmth in the timbre of your voice, a fractional slowing down. It sounds genuine. It sounds like you truly mean it.
So pay very close attention to how native speakers sound when they disagree. Not just what they say, but how they say it. There is almost always a perceptible gentleness in the voice, a slight slowing down, a softening of the edges.
Because slowing down signals thinking. It signals consideration. If you speed up, it sounds reactive, like you were just impatiently waiting for them to stop talking so you could launch into your own rebuttal.
Which is not a conversation. That is just two people taking turns being annoyed at each other.
Okay, let us talk about one more tricky situation. Because there is a particular moment that many learners find genuinely difficult, and that is when someone says something that you honestly believe is factually incorrect. Not just a different opinion, but something demonstrably untrue.
Ah, yes. Because that is where it gets emotionally very complicated. You do not want to embarrass them publicly, but you also cannot just nod along and agree with something you know is untrue. That feels wrong too.
So what do you do in that delicate situation? Here are a few options. Option 1. I think there might be a slightly different version of that story, actually. It is incredibly gentle, but it effectively opens a door. It invites them to reconsider, without directly accusing them of being wrong.
Option 2. I have read something a bit different on that. I might be thinking of a completely different source, though. This one is brilliant because it makes the disagreement about the information itself, about the sources, not about the person. You are not saying they are wrong. You are saying the information might be contested, that there is another account.
Option 3. And this one is a little more advanced. It takes a bit more confidence. Oh, interesting. I actually had the complete opposite understanding of that. How did you come across that information? You ask a genuine, open-ended question. Suddenly, you are curious, inquisitive, not combative or confrontational.
That last one takes some courage. It truly does. Because you are subtly putting the ball back in their court. But if you genuinely want to understand their perspective, or if you want them to hear themselves, perhaps reconsider their own source, it is extraordinarily effective.
And sometimes, quite beautifully, people will say, "Oh, actually, maybe I remembered that wrong." Because you gave them the space, the dignity, and the permission to walk it back without losing face, without feeling stupid.
Saving face. That is such an incredibly important concept in so many cultures, and definitely in English. A lot of disagreements escalate, Not because people cannot change their mind, but because they cannot find a dignified, graceful way to do it.
So a crucial part of disagreeing well is always giving the other person a clear, easy exit, a graceful path to shift their position without feeling humiliated.
You might be right, actually. That is a perfect example. A beautiful, tiny little reversal. 4 simple words, and the disagreement can be completely over.
You might be right. Not you are right. Just, it is possible. I am open to that possibility.
Okay. Quick recap before we dive into your weekly challenge. Today you learned, first, swap but for and. It completely changes the entire emotional register of your disagreement. Second, use cushion phrases like, I might be missing something here, or correct me if I'm wrong. Third, hold your ground gently, firmly, but kindly, with phrases like, I still think, or I'm not entirely convinced. Fourth, offer perspectives rather than delivering verdicts. Try, I wonder if it depends on, or I see it slightly differently. And finally, when someone is factually wrong, opt for a curious, open question instead of a direct, blunt correction.
And never forget to pay attention to your tone. All of these powerful phrases can be said warmly or coldly. The warmth, the genuine warmth in your voice, is at least half the work, if not more.
Right. Your weekly challenge. This week, I want you to have one real disagreement in English. It does not have to be a big, world-changing one. It could be something wonderfully small. Someone's restaurant recommendation that you just did not love, a movie opinion you absolutely do not share, or even a weather prediction you fundamentally disagree with.
And here is the twist. Instead of either simply going along with it, even though you disagree, or bluntly saying, no, I think you are wrong, use one of today's phrases. Just one. Try, I still think, or I see it slightly differently, or even just, I'm not entirely convinced.
Then, I want you to actively notice how it feels to hold your ground politely. What changes in your internal emotional landscape? What was the other person's reaction? Did they respond differently than you expected? Because it is a skill, a muscle that grows stronger with practice.
Come and tell us your story. Leave a comment on YouTube or wherever you listen. We genuinely read every single one. And if you had a specific situation where you did not know how to disagree politely, tell us the scenario. We might feature it and offer advice in a future episode.
We absolutely love hearing from you. And if this episode resonated with you, if it gave you a new tool, please share it with someone else who is learning English. That is truly the best way to support what we do here.
Now, next week.
Next week, we are going to dive into something that even many advanced learners still get subtly wrong: the crucial difference between formal English and polite English. Because they are absolutely not the same thing. You can be incredibly formal and still manage to sound incredibly rude. And conversely, you can be quite casual, quite relaxed, and still sound wonderfully respectful.
We are going to show you exactly where that subtle line is, and precisely how to stay on the right side of it in any conversation. That is next week on Mr. and Mrs. Oxford. Until then, take your challenge seriously. Find a disagreement, use one new phrase, and truly notice how the conversation shifts.
See you next week.